Hola, soy Patricia Gomez, bienvenidos. Hoy en Adelante, 180 días Hartsville, una producción que presenta los esfuerzos de un pueblo del área rural de Carolina del Sur por hacer un uso excepcional de su sistema escolar. Nosotros revisitamos el distrito escolar de Racine, que trata de incrementar el número de estudiantes bilingües que se gradúan. También Global Partners Running Waters provee recursos a poblaciones que carecen de agua potable. Y Sophie Torrijos de la Universidad Marquette nos habla sobre una pintura del cubano Wifredo Lam que será parte de la exhibición Is Hispanic. En marzo pasado, en la televisión pública de Milwaukee, se estrenó el documental 180 días Hartsville, que relata cómo un pueblo del área rural de Carolina del Sur trata de hacer un uso excepcional de su sistema escolar elemental. Nosotros, en Adelante, le presentamos nuevamente una de las partes de nuestra producción local sobre el distrito escolar de Racine, quien en su caso se esfuerza por aumentar el número de estudiantes latinos que se gradúan. Esta producción ganó una nominación de los premios Emmys en el 2014.
Hands down.
SCJ is college bound.
The college program started the 2010 school year, and that started with me taking 2 books of stamps. I said, I can take 2 books of stamps, write colleges, ask them for, I called it Dream Big. I wanted my school to start to dream big. I sent out 80 college letters, and pretty much I received like a 70% response. I received pennants, I received college paraphernalia, and I introduced it to the staff that school year. Each classroom adopted a college, and we started from there. And that we soon incorporated college challenges where the students could do math problems and they would qualify to receive college paraphernalia. We started talking about having a school creed. I developed that, a school creed, a school song. Things we just did within the school to say, no, you're college material. Not only can you finish middle school and high school, but you can go to college and finish that as well.
The kids really, from the time they start in kindergarten, they have a sense that we believe they will be going to college. They are going to definitely finish high school and they are going to go on to some other schooling, and we don't even discuss that they don't. And I think when I realized that that really was something that kids were thinking about, I had 2 boys in my room, and they were new to my school. They were both 5th graders. And it was the beginning of the year. They had gotten in a fight at recess, so they were in my office, and they were filling out their reflection sheet. And the one boy was really angry. You know, oh, I hate this school. I wish I was at my old school. They don't let you fight here. And, you know, he was really grumbling about it. And the other boy looked at him and said, well, yeah, but at least we're at the school where you can go to college. And it just sort of gave me goosebumps, because I thought, you know, you don't really realize how much you're influencing what they think they can do. And this definitely has helped. Every day when we do announcements, at the end of announcements, we say, hands down, the best in town. SCJ is college bound, and the kids all holler it out along with us. So they really are invested in the college idea.
An education is the foundation for your future. I remember my counselor in high school saying to me, you're not college material. You know, you should go work in a factory. What that counselor did was try and take away my hope. And I tell the counselors here in Racine and the counselors I work with in other schools, in other districts, don't ever take a child's hope away from them. I arrived in 2003, and I was hired as the Assistant Superintendent for Secondary Education. And so I was also responsible for our bilingual programs. And at that time, the district was using 3 models of bilingual education. We had the dual language program, and then we also had transitional bilingual education and an English immersion approach at one of the schools.
Estamos viendo mayor número de niños latinos en todas las escuelas del distrito. Entonces también, pues por eso mismo, el programa bilingüe ha tenido que crecer. Ahora estamos en 7 escuelas primarias, en 4 escuelas secundarias y en todas las escuelas superiores del distrito. Tenemos a muchos maestros que están trabajando a diario con los niños en un salón bilingüe y también ofrecemos servicios de ESL a los niños que están en clases monolingües.
Para los estudiantes latinos con necesidades especiales, el panorama educativo se complica mayormente cuando estos no dominan el idioma inglés. Anteriormente, en el distrito de Racine, se les obligaba a elegir entre educación especial o educación bilingüe.
We had a lot of students who were dual language students who needed both special education services and bilingual services, and they weren't getting that. Parents were having to make a choice between the two, which was illegal. Kids who come with Spanish, being monolingual Spanish, they have a right to be taught in bilingual programs. Just like kids who have disabilities have a right to special education services. And what he and I both have tried to do over the years is impress on everybody that every child has a right to an education that will help them succeed. And with kids who come speaking Spanish, they have a right to learn Spanish and English so that we can prepare them to succeed. Just like with kids with disabilities, they have a right to have us provide whatever interventions they need to succeed. So Dr. Martinez and I worked together, and we worked with kids who had qualified for speech and language services because one of our speech paths told me that the kids were becoming alingual because we were teaching them in English. So Dr. Martinez and I worked with her to create programs where we could provide both services for bilingual and special education with bilingual teachers.
Nosotros estamos colaborando mucho con el Departamento de Educación Especial porque sabemos por los estudios que hay en el campo educativo que lo mejor para los niños bilingües es que sigan en las clases bilingües a pesar de sus necesidades especiales. Sabemos que cuanto más se desarrolla su primer idioma, eso les ayuda a la hora de aprender un segundo idioma, en este caso el inglés. Entonces estamos tratando de colaborar mucho para proveerles los servicios que realmente les van a beneficiar más.
First, it's a matter of economics. If I have a third grade teacher and there are plenty of students, more than 20 students in that grade that are ELL, then I went and displaced the monolingual English teacher with a bilingual teacher because the cost to the district was the same. Since we already are paying for that teacher to be there, we replaced the teacher with a bilingual teacher. Now, those teachers, none of them lost their jobs. They lost their position, but they were able to find positions in other parts of the district. So we never lost somebody because of that.
The first year we did that, Evie tested the kids at the end of the year and found that they had made a great deal of progress in terms of language development and that they were really learning both languages as opposed to being alingual. And alingual means they weren't proficient in either language. So we started with that, and then we expanded beyond that to make sure that all kids who qualified for both services got them. Kids were falling behind constantly simply because they didn't have the language background to understand what we were trying to teach them. Once they get the language, then they can tackle the content. So that's, I think, the biggest advantage with the dual language program, is that we're paying attention to the development of language skills. And that's the underpinning of everything. If you don't have the understanding of language and the vocabulary to understand what's being taught, then you're not going to get it. So I think that's the biggest piece.
Es muy difícil siempre, cuando hay un niño bilingüe, es muy difícil diagnosticar la raíz del problema, porque sabemos por el desarrollo de los dos idiomas, a veces eso puede parecer una discapacidad de alguna forma, cuando en realidad es cuestión del desarrollo del idioma. Entonces lo que nosotros estamos haciendo es tratar siempre, cuando hay un niño bilingüe que tenga algún problema académico, que tratamos de tener al psicólogo bilingüe, también a la terapista de habla bilingüe. Entonces, todas las personas que podemos estar ahí estudiando muy bien al niño para realmente darnos cuenta de qué es lo que está sucediendo con este niño y así tomar buenas decisiones acerca de lo que podemos hacer por él.
The challenge has been to make sure that the kids get the appropriate program, and the research that we have right now indicates that dual language is the best way to go. That monolingual English-speaking kids will get Spanish, and the monolingual Spanish-speaking kids will get the English. So we cross-pollination of those two populations of kids in the same classroom. The other challenge I see, though, is that we have a very difficult time finding enough bilingual teachers to fill our classrooms. Sometimes we have to hire people who aren't certified but who speak Spanish fluently, and they get certified eventually. But that's the biggest challenge, and I have to say that Dr. Martinez has been very committed to going to all kinds of job fairs to entice people to come to Racine to work in our bilingual program. And he's been very successful. I think we've been possibly more successful in attracting teachers than some other districts because he's been out there saying, we need you, we've got this population, we've got this program, come to Racine. So I think those are the two challenges, funding and expanding programs to more schools, and then the other one is finding enough teachers to work in our classrooms.
Estamos muy preocupados en realidad por el nivel de graduación de los niños latinos en Racine. Sabemos que es un punto en que tenemos que enfocarnos mucho para darles apoyo a los estudiantes, por eso también estamos aumentando más los programas bilingües y tratando de promocionarlos, porque sabemos que es la mejor manera para que los niños tengan éxito a largo plazo. Nos gustaría mucho que todos los niños que entraran a nuestras escuelas se graduaran no solamente preparados para entrar a la universidad o a una buena carrera, sino también bilingües. Eso es algo que realmente podíamos hacer por ellos y estamos trabajando. Pues los principales están reaccionando de manera muy positiva para tomar decisiones y implementar programas en sus escuelas para realmente fomentar el bilingüismo y celebrar el multiculturalismo, que sabemos que es algo muy positivo para la cultura de la escuela. Entonces, por ejemplo, en la escuela S.C. Johnson, yo sé que la directora, ella no es bilingüe, pero realmente apoya mucho a sus maestros bilingües y al programa. Está tratando de organizar diferentes actividades en el recreo para mejorar las relaciones entre los niños. Y así, pues, es una manera positiva que ella está tratando de hacer algo en la escuela.
The goal of our project was to implement a system that can provide a measure of independence for individuals that suffer from amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, otherwise known as Lou Gehrig's disease. With this disorder, individuals lose all muscular ability, however, they maintain the ability to move their eyes. So we wanted to harness that power and have them control a computer screen by just moving their eyes. So we implemented that by using a computer program called MATLAB. When I was a freshman, I was very motivated. I knew that once you graduate, employers want individuals with experience. I wanted experience right on when I was a freshman. So I got all my letters of recommendation, and the fall of 2008, when I was a sophomore, I had the opportunity of going for my first time alone to Houston, Texas to do an internship at NASA.
El acceso al agua potable es esencial para la supervivencia del ser humano. Sin embargo, existe una crisis en varias áreas rurales de Latinoamérica, como en Guatemala. Global Partners Running Waters es una organización sin fines de lucro que tiene como misión el construir relaciones de colaboración para proporcionar recursos a zonas rurales que sufren de necesidades tan básicas como el agua, salud y alimentos. Conozcamos más sobre esta organización en el siguiente reportaje de Salvador Gómez.
Right? Yeah, I saw my mom and I know basic.
Somebody, with a real...
Because of a lot of crime.
I'm Sister Jan. I'm a school sister of Notre Dame, and I'm the executive director of Global Partners Running Waters. Global Partners Running Waters began with a dream. I had lived in Guatemala for 12 years, and I experienced not having running water. Our goal is to build relationships not only here with each other, but between North and South. And we do that mainly through collaboration on water, food, and health projects in Latin America. Global Partners Running Waters began shortly after I returned from my 12 years of living in Guatemala. And when I lived in Guatemala, there were times when we had no water, or times when we only had 2 hours of water a day. So when I came back to the States, I knew that for me, water was one of the most important things in Guatemala. I gathered a group of people together just to do some dreaming. And Diane Henke happened to be in the group. It was Jubilee year, and she wanted to give back.
I'm Diane Henke, and I've been working with Global Partners Running Waters since its inception. I had been given some money from my father-in-law when he passed away, and it was Jubilee year, and I knew Sister Jan, and I knew she had gotten back from Guatemala, and so I said, you know, what would you do if I gave you some money for the Guatemalan people? And she said, well, why don't you come to Guatemala and then you can decide for yourself. So Jan and I went down to Guatemala, which was a life-changing experience, and I came back realizing that water was what I wanted to do. And so we then did a water project in Sheba Dos, and then started the organization.
She had a check for the village of Sheba. The entire village was able to have water because of her generosity. And you just can't imagine the difference that makes in the lives of people when for the very first time in your life, you don't have to walk 2 or 4 hours to go carry water or carry the family's laundry down to the river and wash clothes and come back. But all they had to do was turn on their faucet and have water. So that really did make a big difference.
Buenos días, mi nombre es María Salam Pereval. Quiero decirte algo. El agua, lo que pasa es que no tengo agua en mi casa y estamos sufriendo. Y tengo a mis hijas y está sufriendo, cargando agua. El agua está muy lejos y el camino está muy subiendo y ya no aguanta de cargar agua.
Typical family. Normally we'll walk anywhere from 2 to 3 hours in one direction just to get the water, and then you got to walk back. Typical family would be, say, they get up in the morning and it would be the woman and the kids, and they would take that little hike every morning and bring in water for the family to use. Now you have to think how much can, say, a woman and little kids carry. Can't carry that much.
¿Y el agua que utiliza usted en la casa, cuántas veces acarrea al día?
4 veces por la mañana y 3 veces en la tarde.
First of all, the lack of water, the lack of good water, highly affects a child reaching the age of 5. For quite a while, over 25% of the young kids would die, generally due to diarrhea, stomach ailments, things like that, just by having poor water. Whole function of Global Partners to start with was to bring water into the village. We use a gravity feed system, which means we can run water 5-10 kilometers, and you can gain 10 feet in elevation. You can run those pipes for miles through valleys and everything. So when we bring water into a community, it just helps something tremendous.
What these are the kids from Chinique. You can tell by the girls' uniform.
Okay.
Italians, you got Milwaukee.
And have you been to Guatemala as well with Jan?
No, but he knows Mexico.
June 3rd, a group of 16 of us went to Guatemala with Sister Jan of Global Partners Running Waters, and it had always been my dream to have an international service trip for high school students. And I think what was really amazing for us is seeing all the different projects that Global Partners had done down there. My students, after having the experience and observing the scarcity of water, I think it really changed them. I think it changed them the way they look at water, to be more resourceful, to be more careful, to be better stewards of our environment. I think to be more compassionate and reach out to other people who don't have something so simple that makes, it's essential to life.
antes de que cuando no tengo agua potable en la casa, eso cuesta un poco. Cuando me voy al río, damos cuenta si vamos a traer agua, toman las vacas o los animales. Después nosotros llegamos allí, nos venimos y tomamos agua sucia. En cambio ahora tomamos agua limpia.
I would invite our audience, especially those in the audience who have a heart, who have compassion, especially for children, to come with us on one of our trips and see the reality. It makes not only parents and students grateful for all that we have here, but many people are looking for a way to give back.
It's very easy to read about things, very easy to get statistics, very easy to see things on TV. But until you actually experience it, you really don't fully understand it. When you meet people, they'll tell you, how come you come to visit me in my village? How come you're providing that for me? Sometimes it is hard to explain. It's that we feel that, hey, we have it really pretty good, and we're going to share what we have with you.
We're all about relationships. It's one thing to have lots of material wealth, and it's another thing to have lots of other kinds of wealth, like spiritual wealth, community wealth, and it's a sharing. But the biggest thing, I think, is relationships, that actually meet the people, get to know people, become friends with people so that you truly know their heart and they know yours.
Estamos sanos, estamos limpios, lavamos, bañamos cuando nosotros queremos y eso me siento muy feliz porque ya tengo agua potable en mi casa.
Later in my life, I was studying at the university. I had spent a lot of time in Colombia. I went to Bogota when I was 19 and studied at the Universidad de los Andes there. And while I was there, I started working as a volunteer in a program for street children. And I kept going back, and I eventually wrote my senior thesis about my work with the children there, about the street children. I know a lot about Colombia. I've spent a lot of time there, so maybe I'll write a book for my son about Colombia and about his Colombian heritage. And that's sort of where it started. I just had this idea that I was going to write something down for my own child. There's so much to be learned from other people and from other countries and different cultural traditions. And I've learned so much in my own life traveling and going someplace new and being open to new ideas and new music, new food. And so I guess that my message here is I hope that everybody would be open to new experiences and to people and to always be on the lookout to learn something new from somebody else.
El Museo de Arte Haggerty de la Universidad Marquette cuenta con una colección de piezas de arte que incluyen obras latinoamericanas. Algunas de estas piezas serán presentadas en Is Hispanic, una exhibición que se abrirá en agosto. Nosotros estaremos invitando a diferentes miembros de la universidad para que nos hablen sobre trabajos específicos en esta colección. Hoy conversamos con Sophie Torrijos, una estudiante que nos habla sobre una pintura sin título que data de 1959 de Wifredo Lam. Sophie, thank you very much for being with us on Adelante.
Thank you for having me.
Sophie, can you tell us why you decide to talk about Wifredo Lam's Untitled painting? What are the reasons that you are linked or are attracted to this specific work?
Sure. I really like this work. I think to understand the work in general, you need to understand about Lam's background, and has this amazingly culturally diverse background and a lot of influences as well, and it's kind of what made me identify with it in the first place. His background is, his father was a Chinese immigrant, and his mother was of African and Indian descent, and so right off the bat, he has a very diverse background. But then in addition, as he got older, he moved to Europe, and he spent about 15 years in Spain. And he spent almost his entire adulthood in Spain to the point where he identified more as European than Cuban for a while. And I think he had a status as an outsider in either place, which kind of gave him flexibility to choose which aspects of his culture he wanted to play up or identify with, because in World War II he moved back to Cuba. And this is where I think his art is most interesting, because he had like a reawakening, and he rediscovered his ethnic past. And then that started his best period of work, in my opinion, which is his Afro-Cuban period, which shows just what an amazing synthesizer he is. And so he's able to take all the influences from Europe and from his African past and really combine them into these images and represent it.
What is the message in this painting?
I like the painting because it's an example of Santeria. Santeria is the spiritual tradition of, it's originated in the Caribbean among West African slaves, but it's a combination of Roman Catholicism with voodoo, just indigenous religions of Africa. And so in this painting, it shows animals were a very important element of African religion, and so in the painting there's like a horse and a bird, and both of these are really important symbols in African religion. Like the horse, it's a person embodied as a horse would be symbolically ridden by a spirit, and so the painting is almost like a symbolic renewal, like a person renewed and empowered by the spirits. And being in touch with, I think, his African past really shows in the style of the painting. Almost like looking at an African mask. He met Picasso when he was in Spain, and Picasso was really inspired by African masks, and so it's almost like you can see all these influences just being combined in one painting. That's why I really like this as an example of Afro-Cuban art. It's, I think, just very empowering to African people who in Cuba were actually very discriminated against, because racism is very entrenched in, or was very entrenched in Cuban culture. And so I love how he embraces that and brings it to life in art, and then shows the world just Cuban art.
Sophie, we really thank you for being with us on Adelante and for inviting us to go and see this painting as a part of the exhibit that on August will be presented by Haggerty Museum of Art and Marquette. And we hope that a lot of people in our audience get motivated by your presentation today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Y al final de un programa más de Adelante, por favor déjenos saber sus comentarios en nuestro teléfono 297-7544 o escríbanos a nuestra dirección de correo electrónico en adelante@matc.edu y visítenos en nuestro sitio del internet en mptv.org y en Facebook. Sintonícenos en Milwaukee Public Television, canales 10.1 y 36.2 todos los martes a las 6:30 de la tarde y en canal 36.1 los miércoles a las 12:30 de la medianoche y los domingos a las 6 de la tarde. Y en MPTV VM 10.3 los viernes a las 6 y 6:30 de la tarde y los domingos a las 8 de la mañana. Soy Patricia Gomez. Gracias por acompañarnos.